All right, we're closing in on 20 after the hour. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. Great to be with you today. I do appreciate you tuning in. And you can do me a big favor. You can tell one other person about the broadcast. It's a great way to evangelize, great way to get people plugged into a program that will give them a look at life they're not going to find anywhere else on the radio dial. And, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be the guy you're standing next to pumping gas right now. I don't know. Wherever you are, think about it. In fact, we take a look at a myriad of issues, everything from this potential lawsuit against the Vatican to politics and finance, the issues in the Gulf. And today we're going to take a look at another issue. And I'm going to link over to this article I read. It's called Christians Rise Up. And I can't tell you, my next guest, Dr. Grace Vuoto, couldn't be more on this issue. She was highlighting how we've seen this political movement in our country where the power of the people, when they're united, they can shake really the establishment to its core. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party, looking at this Tea Party, and she says, can you imagine what would happen if Americans in this nation got equally proactive? Wrote an article called Christians Rise Up. Go to relevantradio.com, keyword Drew, and we'll get you plugged in. We'll also link you over to her website as well. Her husband, of course, you've heard here on the program before, Jeffrey Cooner. Dr. Vuoto has been with us as well, and you can check out their institute. It's the Edmund Burke Institute. It's a wonderful think tank based in Washington, and Dr. Vuoto is, of course, the founder and the executive director there. And Grace, always a pleasure to have you here with me. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Drew, and it's such a pleasure for me to be on your excellent show.
Oh, I love it. I love talking to you and to Jeff, and I love dealing with these issues. This is one of the areas that I'm very passionate about, especially when we get into the political cycle. I mean, people sometimes wonder, why do you talk about politics? If we want to affect change in this nation, then we have to use the mechanism that's in place, and of course, that is politics. But the same is true for us as Christians. We decry right now. We're constantly, bemoaning the fact that, oh my gosh, look what's coming out of the entertainment industry. Look what's coming out of television. Look what they're teaching my kids in school. I mean, the litany goes on. And I've often said that if we truly voted our values and if we truly stood up and made a difference, what a radical country we would have. You point out in your article that Christianity is in retreat, and you say this, and I'll quote you: the greatest victory that the American left has had over the last 100 years is to browbeat Christians and urge and to purge their influence from the public square, especially in politics. Yet if American Christians were simply to flex their collective muscles, the nations would be immediately transformed and vastly improved. I could not agree with you more. It seems that the American muscle is atrophied today for some reason, Doctor. And I know in your article you point out why. Let's talk a little bit about it. How do you see the Christian bloc in this country today? I think 85% of Americans profess a belief in Christianity. Others, you say the number's a little bit lower, about 76%. But that's still a pretty significant portion of this nation.
That's exactly the point. Drew, I, like many other Christians, I'm sometimes frustrated at the onward march of liberalism. And when I wrote this piece and I just looked at the statistics, we Christians are the overwhelming majority, and there is no reason for us to feel helpless, and there is no reason for our values to be constantly purged from our schools and from our society at large. The fact is that there are at least 76, possibly more, 76% of Americans who profess to be Christians. That is 234 million.
Wow.
That's just a whole lot of people. And if you think about it, even if you say, well, some of these are watered-down Christians or they're just nominal Christians, still, we are the overwhelming majority. And as a result of the fact that we live in a democracy, the society should mirror our values. And instead it doesn't. Instead it mirrors values that are the values of a minority. So why is this happening? There's a whole bunch of reasons, and that's what we'll discuss today.
Yeah, let's start with the vision of our founding fathers. I mean, when they framed our Constitution, their vision for this country, I think is a lot different. If they had a looking glass, they could peer just a century or two into the future, they'd probably be shocked at what they're seeing right now, the attack on marriage, the form of government that we have. What was the vision of our founding fathers, and where are we today?
You know, Drew, our founding fathers were so astute. They had studied the classics. They had studied ancient Rome and ancient Greece. And they understood that the democracy that they had created was only going to survive as long as the moral fabric of the society remained intact. So, you know, you said that they would be shocked. They would be shocked that we've let the moral fabric slip away, but they wouldn't be shocked that that's what happens to democracies, you know? They knew and that's exactly what they feared. They were profoundly Christian men, and they understood that if we're going to do this huge experiment in terms of letting all kinds of people have a vote eventually, you know, participate in the republic, that they would be incumbent upon the people to maintain very, very high moral standards. And one of the things that the liberals have done is they've tried to strip away our history from us. The first thing that they're taking away from us is a sense of the fact that we were founded as a Christian nation and that we were founded predominantly by Christian men. And so once you take away somebody's history, that's one of the best ways to assault a sense of who they are and what their country really should be and what it's all about. So the liberals have basically won that because most people don't even recognize how profoundly Christian the founding fathers were and how they understood that it was absolutely imperative to maintain the Christian identity in order for the democracy to work well.
So we've allowed secularists to rewrite our history then and really downplay our faith. The thing is, how did that happen? I mean, was it incremental? Was it a slow assault on Christianity? I mean, how did we get to the point right now where you can't have a nativity creche in a school at Christmas time? You can't even say Merry Christmas in a store, and yet you've got atheists and all these other people promoting their agenda and being supported in it.
You know, Drew, one of the most successful tactics that the liberals have used is this. They have let Christians believe that secularism, that is a state that does not make many references to the origins of the founding of the Christian faith, they have made us believe that secularism is a form of neutrality. Mm-hmm. It's as though, if you have a secular state, it's free and everybody can compete in the marketplace of ideas and Christians are safe. In reality, secularism is not neutral. Secularism is a disguised attack on Christianity. And I think the more that Christians recognize that we are under assault, that we are not safe in this society that uses the language of liberty and toleration. They use that language, but in reality, they're constantly undermining our core values. And so the first thing that Christians have to really grasp is that we are under assault and we are not safe, and that secularism is not neutral. It's actually very, very hostile to our core beliefs. We saw just recently in the Supreme Court ruling that just came down, along with upholding gun rights, what they also said is that if you have a group on campus, for example, that wants to ban the inclusion of gays in a specific academic setting, that group will not be allowed to do so. Well, you tell me that that's not an assault on Christianity. It absolutely is. I mean, Christianity, it professes a certain set of values, and when the founders created this country, they believed that you should have the freedom of association. You should define the membership of the groups that you establish.
It's interesting. You quote author Martin Bertram, who's vice president of the Republican Assembly of Kern County, California, in your article, and you brought up a great point. He says this. He says everything that is great about America is derived from its Christian foundation, from that Christian foundation. Even the abolition of slavery would not have occurred had it not been for the pivotal role of Christian abolitionists. We seem to have lost that. We seem to have forgotten our history somehow.
Absolutely, we have. And so the way that the progressives, basically, what they did was they let us believe that secularism was not hostile to us. And then the other thing that they did, as well as stripping away our history, was that they took over the education system.